Hello everyone, and welcome back to Canal Sidings for video number 12. Bit of a milestone video this, because I have now passed 100 subscribers. Took me just under 6 months, and that's more than I could ever have hoped my channel would do on YouTube. So to everybody who has subscribed, thank you very much, and I hope that you continue to watch what I'm doing. Everybody who comments, everybody who likes, everybody who just views, thank you, because you make it worthwhile. So anyway, this is not a particularly well, was never going to be a particularly long video. I've got a feeling it's going to be a bit longer than I expect, but there you go. What I thought I'd do this time, while the whole layout is still up in one piece, is do another vehicle conversion, and that will probably be the last bit of vehicle conversion that I do for some time, because I don't want it to get boring, and I'd like to get on with the layout anyway. But it will give me at least 2 UK outline vehicles that I can run. So without further ado, let's get on with the conversion. Okay, so what I thought I'd do before I got back onto the railway, seeing as how I've got the 2 baseboards joined together and I can run vehicles, was to do another conversion, another vehicle conversion, to get another British outline vehicle. And the vehicle I've chosen is one similar to this. It's not exactly the same. This is a Leyland cab, British Road Services 6-wheel vehicle, and as I say, the one I've chosen is similar. The only real difference is, if I can find it, this piece, which this one has the Leyland cab and this one has the Albion cab. So I thought this was a little bit more in keeping with my early 1950s period. This, I'm not sure, maybe a little bit later. So this is the vehicle type. It's actually made by Base Toys, and they are very useful Base Toys, because first of all, they don't cost very much, so when you pull them apart you don't feel too badly about it, and secondly, they are quite a lot of their construction is plastic. This piece here is die cast, the chassis, and it's the only piece that's die cast. The rest is plastic, including the cab. And I actually think that's a better way of building them, because I think you get better detail that way. You can mould plastic into much better shapes than you can mould die cast material. It is strange that these doors open. I can never get them to open, but they do, like that. And these doors are actually made out of metal. But we'll come on to that. I've just closed them the wrong way. Okay, so that is the type of vehicle that I want to motorise and make into a Faller road system vehicle. Now, the one that I'm going to use, I have actually taken apart. Just put that one up there for a minute so you can still see it. There's the back of it. Here is the piece that used to be under there, which was glued solidly on, and I have actually removed it, because I intend to make it such that this piece will go on afterwards to cover up everything inside. The doors sit in those 2 holes there, and in those 2 holes there, and I will be putting that back. I'll talk about this cutout in a minute. But the interesting thing about these is that they're screwed together. If we look at this for a second again, and you look just here, there is a screw there there is a screw there. If I can see it, it's that one there, and there is a screw under that front axle. You take those two screws out, this piece comes off, take that one out and the cab comes off, which is quite useful. It means you can easily screw them back together, and there's where the screws go, and there's a corresponding one under the cab. Cab screw goes in there, and then we have a screw here and a screw here that hold the body on, or did. Okay, this is the chassis from it. Now, the first thing I've had to do is remove this, which is the fuel tank. It used to be like that, but with a Fowler vehicle, and here is one, just there is the stop magnet, so I had to remove that. I shall be putting a magnet along there eventually. Something else that is always causing me problems is if you look at standard Fowler wheels, and here is a Fowler steering unit. These are Fowler truck wheels, and you compare them to the size of those wheels. They are different. These are slightly larger than the Fowler ones. There's not a lot I've been able to do about that yet. You've really got to use the Fowler wheels because these are much too slippery, whereas these have got good rubber tyres on them. So you've really got to use the Fowler wheels. So I've decided that I need to compromise. I also use the rear Fowler wheels, and this is the rear axle that I intend to use. And when they're in there, they will probably look just about okay. In order to fill the other two wheels in, what I've had to do is take a pair of the original wheels and turn them down, which I just did by putting them in a rotating drill, rotated them fast and ran them up against my abrasive block, and now they will stay in the same place. I'll have to elongate these holes a little so that these wheels have got a bit of suspension and will move up and down and won't interfere with the actual drive wheels, which will be in there. Okay, now what I had intended to do was use a little gearbox and motor assembly that I picked up off of the Chinese eBay, AliExpress. Unfortunately, the gearbox is just too large to allow me to use it or any of its gears in between these frames. You've got quite a narrow piece there. So what I decided to do was use a Fowler vehicle, and I've used one very much like this one, almost identical. This one happens to be the Mercedes truck with the Schenker on the side. The vehicle that I used is an MAN bodied vehicle, the bumper's missing, from a Miller's vehicle. Very similar vehicles, and that one will serve to illustrate the point that I'm talking about when I actually talk about how the conversion I'm doing it. What I had hoped, as I said, was to use a gearbox, but I've chosen to do that. Since choosing that, I have actually got another gearbox and motor from AliExpress, which is narrow enough to actually get in there. I'd have to just do a little tiny bit of filing, but as you can see, that will go in there, and that motor could stand up in there possibly, stand up inside there, and I could use part of the gearbox and produce something that doesn't require a Fowler motor. Now bear in mind, a Fowler vehicle or a Fowler motor are expensive. A Fowler vehicle is going to cost you second hand a minimum 50 quid. If you buy it new, 70, 80, 90 or 100. And a Fowler motor, if you buy it from the likes of Gauge Master, is going to cost you about 13 quid. Well, that motor I got for, again from AliExpress, I got for $7.50. But not only did I get that one, but I got 9 more with it. And I got 9 more with it for $7.50. So, whoops, I've just thrown them on the floor. Quite a bargain, I thought. Trying to remember not to tread on that one that dropped on the floor. Oh, 2 of them. Okay, so I can't do that now because I've already modified the vehicle to do a different method, which is to use a Fowler truck. And what I've done, I'll just leave that Fowler truck there and pick up, just move some of these out of the way for a minute. What I've taken from the other Fowler vehicle is, there is its chassis, because that way up of course. There is the chassis of the Fowler vehicle. That's the bottom half of the chassis. I have taken the front off, and I'll tell you about that in a minute. And on top of that goes this flat plate that in this vehicle contains the switch, the charging socket, and the batteries are in there as well. And that flat plate had these pieces on it. I've actually cut that down already, but that was the middle section of it. This was the rear section, and this was the front section. As you can see, I've taken quite a bit out of that piece. That's where the battery goes. That's got the switch in it. The piece that I've taken from there used to have the charging socket in it. Get rid of that bit because we don't need it. The charging socket simply consisted of 3 of these. If I can pick it up, which are just tiny little connectors which were just pushed into holes in the moulded chassis. Now, I am not using those because I cut them off, but they are identical to these, which are the turned pins from a turned pin integrated circuit socket. These cost pennies. I think I bought 3 of those from Hong Kong for about 3 quid, so about £1 each. They're 40 ways, so you've got 40 of these on them, and they push out very easily. As you can see, I've already had some off. They push out very easily, and you can either make them into 3s, or you can push them out completely and push them into holes in whatever you're working on. Haven't decided exactly how I'm going to do it yet, but that's where I'll get my charging socket from. Probably use the same switch, not sure, haven't worked that out yet. The rest of the Fowler vehicle interior is here. This one happens to have a printed circuit board, that one doesn't, but it has a pair of batteries, a place where the reed magnet goes for stopping, reed switch goes for the stopping it. This is where the charging socket went. The switch connects here, and this is the resistor that used to be a much smaller one that I've increased the size of to slow the vehicle down a bit. I shall use parts of that, but I shan't use the printed circuit board. And we also have, from the original, the motor. This is a genuine Fowler motor, complete with Fowler worm and that drives the Fowler rear axle directly via that gear, and that is the orientation that it is in the vehicle. The motor sits in this, which is just a push fit, and that sits in there. I'm not going to push it in now, but that's where it goes in that piece of the original chassis, and the wheels go here, which is where you get your gear mesh from. So I intend to use this piece in my new body. I'll put these aside again because they get in the way. So what I did with this chassis, and unfortunately it did break and I've had to glue it back together, but I'm going to strengthen it. It broke across there and across here because there's just no strength left, and die cast is very brittle. Luckily super glue holds it together quite nicely, so I'm hoping that it'll stay together. I dropped it, that's all I did. What I intend to do is push that through there and align it so that the wheels will sit in the right place centrally in the mudguards, and then glue that on the top of there so that it's all sitting right. Then and now you see why I have a hole in this. This goes over the top of that, fits back into its original holes. I can see where they are. I can put that in a minute. Can't see which hole it is it goes into. It's that one. There you go. That sits in there, and I can screw that back on, and that sits in there like that. Now it doesn't turn so much, and that allows me to fit the original Fowler wheels in here, and a set of the modified wheels, which I did show you earlier, in the back there, that will just do nothing other than hopefully just rotate. And I will fit the battery on the top here, and somewhere find a place. Obviously the stop magnet's got to go here. Somewhere find a place for it, and it's a bit tight as you can see, but somewhere find a place for the charging socket. I actually don't mind if you have to take the top off this to charge it. That's what I did with my first conversion. If you remember it, it was the that Austin British Railways lorry in Carmine and Cream, what we saw running around in the last video. You have to take the roof off of that to charge it, so I don't mind having to take the back off. I shall make this removable easily anyway, with bits of plastic card so it sort of clips over. That's a job for the future, but we've got to get the mechanism working first. So that's how I intend to do that, and obviously the motor will then drop straight back in there and will mesh with the gears. Now, as far as the steering is concerned, as you can see on the original vehicle, this one's very similar. The steering axle, and I've got to get this in the same place as I had it before, goes right over the top of the screw that holds the cab on, which is a bit sad, because it means that when I put this Fowler steering on, which sits quite high, I can never get hold of these, which actually sits quite high up, or needs a high piece of chassis, I'm going to have nowhere to fit the cab. Let's go back to that in a second. What I have actually done is taken quite a lot out of this chassis so that I can fit this, and I've got it the wrong way round, it actually goes that way round. I can fit that steering unit on there. Very hard to hold it in place, but it will fit. Now you notice there is another hole here, and if we go to the cab for this vehicle, the Albion cab that we looked at before, behind the hole that it was fitted with, which I'll have to remove, is a large flat area, and that actually sits, if I can get it back on, it actually sits about there. It actually locates quite nicely in, it does locate nicely, but I can't get it on. There it is, that's where exactly where it goes. What I'm hoping I can do is put a screw in that hole and build up this portion of the cab to screw it back on again. There's not a lot of space, but I'm hoping. What I have done to this cab is I've taken this apart and I have put a driver in it, which is just a figure that I found in some in a job lot of figures that I bought from China for fitting inside coaches, and that one just happened to fit nicely in there. All I had to do was slightly bend his arms and cut off his legs and his bum and drop him on the seat, so he's pretty good in there and does actually look a lot better when you can see a driver in the cab than a vehicle driving about with no driver. So that's where I am at the moment. What I'll do is I'll continue with that, and hopefully next time you see it we'll have something a little bit more complete that we can run around the layout. So I'll be back in a few days. To you it'll seem like a few seconds. Okay, I'm back, and here we have a modified vehicle. Just pick it up, you can see that it has its full complement of steering and adjustment here. It has these wheels which aren't powered, these wheels which are powered. It has an on-off switch, and if I turn it on, the wheels turn and they go in the right direction. And we have the cab fitted and a driver in it. Now, what I haven't made up my mind yet is what I'm going to do with this piece. I need to get inside it to charge it because I have fitted the charging socket here. Now, I have two options. I can permanently fit this, or semi-permanently, in other words, a little bit of glue, perhaps half a dozen spots, and then simply open the doors to, so I haven't got it on properly, simply open the doors to charge it. Or I can fix the doors into this piece and make this drop on the top like that, such that you have to take the whole thing off to charge it. I'm slowly coming round to semi-permanent fixing of that, and then using the doors to get in to charge it. Some of the things I said last time, what I've done is I have moved the screw that used to hold this on to that used to hold the cab onto the chassis. I have moved it back into this hole here, and to do that I built the back of the cab up and then drilled into it and put in that self-tapping screw that used to hold the cab in the other position. I've taken enough out so that the steering doesn't get caught up on anything, and the steering is fitted in the front hole. I have fitted these wheels such that they do move up and down a little, about half a millimetre or so, maybe a millimetre, and I simply did that by using one of these little jokers, which is a dental burr, and I rotated it in my electric drill and simply used it to elongate the hole upwards on each side a little, going very carefully as to not take out too much. And it has worked, because nowhere on my road does this set of wheels, this rear set, now lift these off the road and therefore lose its traction. So it seems to work perfectly for what I need. On the top I have used the original cradle that the motor was in, but that the battery was in, but I have fitted a couple of extra pieces of plastic card so that the battery is a bit more sturdy in there. Motor is in its standard mount, and this is 3 connections off of one of those IC sockets, and I've made a little plastic card cradle, glued the cradle together with liquid poly and glued the cradle onto the back of the lorry with liquid poly, and the socket is glued in with some medium viscosity cyanoacrylate, and it's all wired up. It has a resistor down there, which is a bit hard to see, a bit of light on it. There it is. There's a resistor down there, which is now 12 ohms, which seems to be enough to get this lorry going at a reasonable speed up and down the layout. So there you have it, one Faller conversion from a Faller German prototype in HO scale to a British prototype of an Albion cabbed box van with 6 wheels, a slightly different type of prototype to what you normally see, and the only real compromise is that these wheels are a little small if you compare them to the original type of van that it came from. And I've stupidly put it right over there. Here it is. Here is the original vehicle, although this is a Leyland version, as we said, and as you can see they are still approximately the same height, even though almost identical, even though this one has smaller wheels. It's not made enough difference for me to worry about. So I think this video has now got long enough. What I'll do is I'll wind it up and finish off with a few shots of the new vehicle running up and down the layout.